Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's October 5, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank the New York Finnegan's Wake group for introducing me to today's guest, Ryan Hitchcock. Ryan, where in the heck you calling in from?
Big Fork, Montana.
How cool is that? First question
and
is...
I'm Gerry, you know what I'm doing out here, right?
What?
I'm growing dental floss.
That's a great way to start. We're here to have fun and growing dental floss. I got to make a note of that. Okay, what is the best thing for a human being, Ryan?
Well, that takes me back to catechism. So maybe that's the chief end. So I remember, the Westminster Catechism. What's the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. That's one classic answer. But I subscribe to that answer. But I also think that a connection with the natural world is kind of one of the most important things that someone can have, that a human can have, to realize they're part of something much bigger.
Those two are really amazing, two ends of the spectrum. Really cool, Ryan. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, because we like it. It makes us, I think, why do bees gather honey?
Yeah. Well, you're answering a question with a question. That's what this series is all about, inventing new questions. But do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more invented?
Yeah, that's also a good question. I think it's obviously both. So it's kind of like nature and nurture. They both conspire together. So we're information-oriented beings. So if we're, if you kind of go back to primitive man or humankind, our success was based on our ability to read the landscape, read the presence of animals, read the weather, find shelter, read the land. So we're kind of hardwired towards information, signs, right? When you track an animal, it's called a sign. So we're necessarily symbolic, right? We're looking for signs. Here's a trace of an animal that we need to follow. And, so I think we're hardwired to see information. And now, the information, a lot of times, the signs that now we pursue are often signs that we have invented ourselves. So, there's really this kind of...
Really good, Ryan. It reminded me of a McLuhan joke. The explorer's walking through the woods, and his guide is, guiding him through the woods. They're looking for signs to hunt and whatnot. And the explorer goes, I think we're lost. And the guide says, we not lost, teepee lost.
Yeah.
So that's the sign, what is the sign there? Really good comment there, bringing up this word sign. And so again, some of these early questions is a more this or more that. And of course it's both, and it depends on context. I'm after your hunch, your guess, but you don't have to answer the question. I'm for tangents, stories, anecdotes. It's just they're just prompts to go wherever you want. So very good.
Well, let me match your story about the teepees lost. So my daughter's going through a Winnie the Pooh phase, and The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is, I think, a tremendous piece of cinema. And when they're lost, they go on an explore in order to lose Tigger to teach him a lesson.
Yeah.
And they get lost, and they keep going by the same sandpit. And so Winnie the Pooh says, well, since we keep trying to find home and we keep ending up at the sandpit, why don't we go and try to find the sandpit, and then we'll get home?
Who wrote Winnie the Pooh?
A.A. Milne.
Oh my God! There's a great A.A. Milne quote I always use. Now I can't think of it, but it'll come up. Oh, here it is. This is unbelievable. Weeds are flowers once you get to know them.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I mean, that is what we're going through right now in the world. It's like we're all flowers, but oh no, you're a weed. Well, maybe if I get to know you, you might be a flower.
Yeah. Yeah. I once was visiting my great aunt, and I hadn't seen her for a while, so I wanted to buy her flowers. This was in Livingston, Montana. So we go to the flower shop, and there's some lovely, blue flowers. And the woman who's selling them, she's like, just so you know, is the person you're giving them to a rancher? Because if they're a rancher, they're going to think you're giving them weeds. Because it's a pest.
Really?
Like a lot of people consider these flowers a pest species.
That is good. And another flower quote is Mark Twain. Forgiveness is the scent the flower gives off when the foot steps on it.
Wow.
That one's amazing. Okay, yes. Onward and upward. I'm glad you're here, Ryan, because it's all about having fun here. So do thoughts create emotions?
Yes.
Okay, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
read it in the New York Times.
That is great, because the examples I give are McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. But read it in the New York Times is the follow-up is, do you read the hard copy or online?
I used to read. No, actually now, it's kind of a fraught history. I'm too impressionable. So I do. I actually haven't been reading the New York Times lately, but I used to. In Korea, I would get it in hard copy. And
hard copy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it because your parents grew up reading the New York Times? Why did you pick?
The Gray Lady. It's always, for me, it's always kind of been this, authoritative voice, but it's a whole nother story that I'm not too fluent in. It's like, I do think there's kind of a crisis in the New York Times and kind of objectivity lately.
Well, I'm addicted to reading obituaries, and the LA Times kind of dropped their obituaries, well written. So it was a great comparison, New York Times, LA Times for me. And the Jane Goodall LA Times obit was way better than the New York Times, and I was kind of shocked because I was expecting that the New York Times would be up, because their obits are amazing. I mean, you really learn a lot.
Yeah. Well, there's the the joke. So Harold Bloom, the New York Times obituary writer, was interviewing him, just getting ready, because they know, he has passed away now, but they knew he would eventually. And so he's like, can I read the obituary? Because, they have it written beforehand when someone's killed, so they're ready to fire it off. And they said, no one's allowed to read their obituary till they're dead.
That is funny. I like him a lot. Okay, can humans think without language?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of intuition in a way, I think. Intuition. Yeah.
Yeah. Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Ryan, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Depends who it breaks down with. I've definitely resorted to hugs.
Oh my God, hugs is a good answer. Hugs.
But it has to be the right person,
Definitely nowadays, really. Well, it's funny. Go back to my first question. What's the best thing for a human being? One of my favorite answers is Craig Baldwin, the great filmmaker. He said, human touch. And then Ann Magnuson said, what's the best thing for a human being? No, I'm sorry. The question I asked them was, what's your favorite form of information? And he said human touch. And she said a hug. But you don't usually think of a hug as information per se.
But it is.
A hug is my mom raised me. Hugs are healing. Yeah.
Well, different things. So much can be expressed. It's like, is it a casual hug? Is it, sometimes, a hug expresses interest in someone, it's like your body language. It's like if you have like romantic interest in someone, sometimes that first surfaces in a hug. If it, friendship, if it's someone, you could be consoling someone. There's so many different ways that hugs impart information.
Your observations of humans in general, are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
Well, I think we're probably more feeling beings, which can be our biggest asset and our Achilles heel at the same time. Yeah.
Well, Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? Or like people who meditate go, okay, now think about not thinking.
Yeah.
And there's a bumper sticker on a car on my street that says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
Yeah, I think that's true.
These are two from Alan Turing in the 50s. One is thinking a function of the soul.
Wow. Is thinking? Oh, is that?
Yeah, the question is thinking a function of the soul?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Didn't he say, someone said not yet, right? There's like an answer to that that's not yet.
Well, both of my Turing questions are out of context. One guy goes, yeah, but you took that out of context. I mean, basically it's like dilemma of the day. Can humans think? I mean, can machines think? It's, Yeah.
The interest, I'm excited that you mentioned Turing. That's been kind of one of my interests lately, which is essentially, the degree that computers think. I just learned how semiconductors work, which I did not know before. I just knew they were binary, but I didn't know what that means. But essentially the history of it is it's Bayes, this 19th century mathematician, he figured out a way to put syllogism into binary form. And so you could solve these algebraic equations. So Aristotle, obviously, he's used syllogism. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. And so it's yes, no to each one of these. All men are mortal, yes or no. Socrates is a man, yes or no. Socrates is mortal, yes or no. Because it's binary, electrical charge can stand for yes or no. So essentially that's what, everything is working, what our conversations made possible, because there's all these little billions, on a transistor of these little Aristotles, little syllogisms carved into silicon with electricity coursing through it. So whether or not machines are thinking, I think they're thinking in a limited way, which is an Aristotelian way. So machines are thinking like little Aristotles, which is, to think like Aristotle is an incredibly rich way to think, but it's also a limited way to think, which Joyce was preoccupied with that. It's like one of the things that Ulysses is doing is it's trying to explode the syllogism. So machines think, but they think in a limited way.
I think since you brought up Zappa right off at the top, that's the biggest lesson I learned from Frank Zappa, is to embrace contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
That in some of these when I'm interviewing people, they go, I'm not into binaries. I was like, come on, I know it's both and it depends, but just, do you have a little inkling? They go, no, I think it's both. That's fine. But it is, humans still tend to have biases. Yeah. McLuhan called it understanding is not having a point of view. That's what he said. And that's an amazing thing, because we think, oh, I love Facebook or I hate Facebook. It's like, no, when you're with one or more people, you don't say that. You study how Facebook has shaped our behavior. Then when you're in your lonely teenage room, you can go, I hate Facebook or I love it. Then you can have a bias,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to do, but it's called suspended judgment,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something I'm really invested in. So it's like, my in my dissertation, which is probably why you contacted me about this ultimately, is really admire the authors. I think that's what Joyce is successful at. Leslie Stevens, who is another author, the father of Virginia Woolf, he's very good at doing that, suspending judgment. And in my dissertation, I was doing conversion and apostasy. So two types of religious decision that go in opposite ways. And for me, it's just an important exercise to kind of really take both options seriously. Yeah. So I admire that idea of that, of suspended judgment, or of looking through different lenses at the same time. If you can.
Pattern recognition leads to comprehensive awareness. But actually, Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." Okay, here's a bonus, because you're so fast and good at this. This is Turing asking a question. What we want is a machine that can learn from experience. Now, is he saying we, the scientists, or is he saying we, the human beings? You put it where you want, or mathematicians, put it where you want. But what we want is a machine that can learn from experience. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I guess who the we is, it depends probably on the context of his remarks. But Turing is a genius, because what we see with AI is that essentially ChatGPT, it is learning from the experience of everything that's ever been written. If you look at now for humanoids, essentially robotics, AI robotics, they're much behind the curve on behind ChatGPT. ChatGPT, you could think it's a human, a humanoid robotic. It's not going to move through the world. My daughter is growing up, she's a toddler. She's, there's a stage in life where she was just carrying things around. It's like, it's just touching everything in the world. So what I'm getting at is, for these learning machines right now, that's what they're actively doing is humanoid robots. They need experience in the world. So they've experienced all the language, and now they're experiencing how physics work. And they're training them. It takes much more time. Reality is much more complex than written reality in some ways. So yeah, Turing, prophetic.
Wait, say that line again. Reality is much more complex than rigid reality?
Well, I said written reality, but I want to take it
rigid,
back.
No, I didn't hear the word. Is it RIGID?
I said written. So I was thinking, but I don't think that's true. Now I want to take that back. But I said written. So
written reality, because I heard rigid reality.
Yeah, okay.
And that was because Waymo's took over our town of Venice, and is the training ground. Dude, these cars have 27 cameras on them. They're if I don't drive a car anymore, and if I wanted to hire a car, why would I even ask a friend? They drive way better than a human. But I'm not going to hire a Waymo. But it's like it's a no-brainer. Do you want to live a safe life? Then why don't you go in the car that's the safest? Huh?
Humans have too many feelings. It makes them bad drivers. They get angry.
Yeah. No, my favorite was I saw the windshield wiper go on a Waymo. It's like, the fuck? Why do you have to clean the windshield for?
Oh, that's funny.
But anyways, it's, and if they get in a wreck, then every Waymo from that point on will absorb that mistake that Waymo made. Mm-hmm. When we were driving and our parents said, okay, pump the brakes when it's raining, and then we crashed the car, we don't remember that. And then we kind of do, but we still mess up.
I remember talking about learning driving, when I was a teenager. It was so fascinating, because it's kind of like you were entering, actually, so maybe Waymo's ahead of us, but I remember, the freeway system in California, you merge onto the freeway, and kind of, I felt like when I first was doing that, I was entering into kind of a group consciousness. It was really striking. I actually kind of forgot about that feeling, because I don't feel that way anymore when I drive. It's like, because it's so internalized. I'm so used to it.
You're on automatic pilot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on
which
automatic.
I guess is kind of group consciousness. It is kind of interesting to think about. Yeah, that
It is.
space, how these machines are sharing actually that consciousness with us, perhaps the rules of the road or the culture of the road. Maybe.
We invented them. Everything we invent extends some humanness. So they're just extensions of humans. Get over it. I mean, that's why people freaking out at AI. I'm like, get over it. Anyways, what do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I don't know. I pursue both. I think for me, it's like meaningfulness is kind of linked to happiness for me. So it's like when I'm happy, it's like, it's something that probably could be read as something meaningful. So it could be nature experiences, it could be reading, it could be time with the family. So I think for me, actually, the happier you are, the more meaningful things actually are.
But I got the question from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning tends to last. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I don't know if I would accept the category. I think the most meaningful things could potentially be also the most joyful things.
Yeah. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Well, that's obviously, that's the debate. Is consciousness a product of the brain, or is consciousness part of reality, where rocks and atoms have their own degree of consciousness? I don't have an opinion on that. I think it's really interesting thinking about it. I could believe either.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light. Because thought, as we said, it's interesting. Thought's electricity, and light goes a lot faster than electricity.
Yeah. Audre Lorde, the poet, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Her colleague Yvonne Rainer said, "Oh, no, you can if you expose the tools." What new tool do you suggest? And it doesn't have to be tangible.
Well, first I want to add one more quote from Maurice Condé, the Caribbean writer, and she was conflicted about writing in French when there was this movement to write in native languages. And she said, I stole French like Prometheus stole fire. So in terms, I think you can steal the master's tools. What are we dismantling here? Who is the master? So what you said, what new tool do we need?
Yeah, basically, I start these questions with cute quotes sometimes. You don't have to apply them. I'm basically asking, what tool do you most gravitate towards? If you want to apply the word new, that's fine. And if you want to apply it to dismantling the master's house, Audre Lorde was probably talking about white supremacy, but she, it's like, can you dismantle the master's house with the master's tool? So I just say, hey, what new tool do you suggest? So again, you can apply it however you want.
Yeah. Makes me, well, I don't even remember the name of it. There's that A.E. Van Vogt science fiction story, Fans Are Slams. I forget what it's called, but it's all about destroying some city. And, well, I don't remember enough about that book. But yeah, I think you can destroy, anything, probably anything that's, because one of the things, it's like, can you destroy some in that book? I remember the question is, can you destroy something quicker than you can build it? Which in the book, they're hoping that it takes as long to destroy something as it takes to build something, but you can destroy something much quicker than build it. And, a hammer or a saw, while you can use it to build something, they smash things and cut things much quicker. Yeah, for me, the tools, the old tools are best. I like pens and paper, books.
Oh, pens and papers. There you go. That's simple. Okay, what toy do you
film? I like film shot on film.
Oh, really?
Not that I'm a purist, but I do like it when people do shoot on film.
Yeah. So, what's a toy you gravitate towards?
I like slides. I've been enjoying slides lately. building blocks.
It's good.
Balance.
What's the third one?
Oh, anything, because you can balance building blocks. Like
balance. Yeah.
Building blocks is you can balance them. So it's kind of how tall can you build them?
That's good. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I don't worry before I go to bed.
Nice. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
New ideas.
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yeah, but it'd be very private, so I wouldn't be able to share it. But I do have early
No worries. That's all right. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
A blessing.
Yeah. Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, I guess what first comes to mind is my grandfather, whose house I'm actually in. He passed away at age 93 this spring, so I'm living in his cabin that he built. And behind me, actually, is that deer head. He shot that deer in 1949. It was his first deer.
Wow, 1949. And so, what did you mainly get from him? I mean, in sense, yeah.
Yeah, maybe like a sense of constant creativity. He's always interested in things, learning about new things. So that's who first came to my mind. Maybe even, probably it came through with his son. So I remember my uncle, a postal carrier, not that it matters, but just like he's not a professor. I remember my uncle once, when I was very little, he recited like the first few pages of Moby Dick to me. And that just made such a rich impression on me.
Wow. That's good. What did your grandfather do?
He was an engineer for Boeing. So
yeah,
if we're talking about computers, he actually programmed one of the very first computers that was used in the Minuteman missile program, which is, well, I guess that the whole, missiles are kind of unfortunate, but I do think that it's very cool that he was involved in kind of one of the first applications of a computer. But that's what his career was, an engineer at Boeing. And he had a very successful career with a degree in general education from Montana State University.
Wow.
Because he was like one credit away from a degree in electrical engineering, but he just got a job. And, it shows how the world's changed. It's like you can't be a successful cutting edge engineer, or maybe you can actually, but it seems less common to be able to do that with just a degree in general education.
Very good. So same question, Ryan, outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, and what was that impact?
Well, I think maybe it's people quoting at literature. It always makes it seem so alive. I certainly have had professors that, have really made an impact on me, where I could be talking about a poem that I love, and then they're able to recite it, showing both that they love it also and that they've loved it for a long time.
Really good point. In fact, you brought up Harold Bloom. That's what amazes me at Harold Bloom is, I can drop a lot of cute quotes like Harold Bloom did, or any of these people, and that, he would take it and apply it in a context that would take the quote a little further. Oh, I learned from that quote, or I learned from that little recitation of Moby Dick. That's important. But how do you take it a little further? And he was really good at that. And I think I love that. See, we live in a cult of personality. I said, tell me someone outside your immediate family. It's like, yeah, people who quote literature. That was a great answer, because you didn't have to name this person or that person. I mean, you said your uncle quoting Moby Dick, but in general, just people who quote literature.
Yeah, inside and outside. That's interesting. That's where my mind goes to.
So, did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yeah, we're raised in a Presbyterian church, even though they're probably more even non-denominationally. I think they think of themselves as evangelical, but that's why we got the Westminster Catechism.
Wow. Do you pray?
Every day, yes.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Well, I think everyone would say, like, you'd hope that he'd say, like, welcome, faithful servant. But I don't think it seems a little presumptuous.
But there's not something you would like God to say to you.
I've never even thought of that ever. Yeah.
That's
a Bible verse that is mingling. There's a Bible verse where it's something, something's like, I don't even remember the exact Bible verse, but it's like, welcome my faithful servant.
Right. No,
I've never actually thought about that question. What do I hope God would say to me?
Yeah, the two answers I get the most are welcome and you did a good job. That's most people say, oh, you did a good job. It's like, okay. So do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Well, I think that's also a both one, so it's like, obviously, I'm sure I've been used, as a vehicle for evil. Like I can think of things, where I didn't help someone who needed help, where I feel pretty horrible about those moments in my history. But I don't also think, so someone, you can, I think, be used by evil, but not ultimately become evil. I don't think anyone's beyond, redemption. I think there are probably evil people, but you can also, I think you can always stop being evil. I think.
Well, actually, the hidden question, Ryan, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy?
With an enemy?
And I'll set up with a few modern thinkers' quotes. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Mm-hmm. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? Say your daughter gets to the age where she goes to school and she's being bullied. What would you advise her?
Yeah, well, now that's because, I could give you, the first answer I'd give is, you're supposed to love your enemy, bless your enemy, and pray for your enemy. But yeah, if my daughter is getting bullied, I'd probably give her different advice.
But I mean, in general, how do you advise people to deal with enemies?
Yeah, I do think it's important to care for your enemies. So I'm not good at I don't have that many. I'm not good at loving my enemies, but I don't, if I even have some, or maybe political figures that I personally have a psychic response against. But I do actually, I do think it does help. I think I pray for them all. So I do that. And but I don't have any good, real rich enemy situations, but I have had, like disputes with people at work or something, interpersonal conflicts. And I always try to not let it, I try to kind of move on, forgive and forget. But.
Yeah. Forgive and forget. I love that. Because Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, Taleb says games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. And Gregory Bateson says when the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, I did something morally and socially wrong? Mm-hmm. So again, it's a lot of prompts. You can go wherever you want, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
Mm. Yeah. Well, so now, punishment work. Sometimes sometimes it can work. Yeah.
James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Faulkner says years later, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one thing, I think there's probably better answers and richer answers, but I think one thing, especially in description, is it's teaching us to see the world more intensely. So if Joyce comes out of the cinema and he's looking at trees, even with greater appreciation, it's like Whitman on Hearing the Learned Astronomer, where he goes in and hears the astronomer's lecture, and then he leaves and gazes at the night sky. And it's not that the lecture was inadequate, but it reinvigorated his sensuous appreciation of the world. So yeah, I do think that's one thing that description's doing, but I think there's something else that's happening on another level, why we want people to reenact these dramas. But I don't have a quick answer to that.
No worries. So tell me briefly your tipping points. Basically you're a literature student, and then you teach, then you're an educator, and now you're business analysis. Where's your tipping points to go that way? Like, where'd you go? Oh, I want to go, high school, college. Oh, I'm going to pursue literature. Where's the tipping point?
Well, there's lots of different ones, but yeah, I didn't even finish high school, or delete that part. It's good. Well, I didn't, but I sometimes I'm like, I shouldn't advertise that because it maybe makes me seem like a flaky person. And I didn't get, not very old, but I didn't get my college degree till I was 26. I had kind of like several years having adventures. And one thing I realized is just one of my passions in life was reading and thinking and having conversations with people. And so then when I went into schools, like for a very long time, I guess, from when I was 24 till I guess I was 35, because then I just did graduate education. So there was this both like, that was, I guess, one tipping point was kind of, I had lots of adventures and I wanted to then focus my mind more and study more and learn something more deeply. When I was in Korea completing my dissertation, I was teaching business English to executives at Samsung Electronics. And that's one reason why I've been getting really interested in semiconductors and artificial intelligence. And yeah. I realized that what the work they're doing is just as creative as any other sphere of human activity. And it's really made me interested in both, the problems of leadership, of organizational management, of operations, and obviously of engineering. So both, there's kind of a crisis in the humanities where there's like not too many positions, especially for people who focus on things like James Joyce and poetry. So, and second, it's like as a graduate student, I taught classes to adult learners, and, so I had some incredible students there. Some of them actually had PhDs in English. So it's like I had the most rewarding teaching experiences I could ever imagine having. And I do kind of want to keep chasing that. And I want to, at the Flathead Valley Community College, I'm doing a course proposal right now for their adult learning program. So I do want to keep teaching poetry, but I'm really interested also in kind of the idea of what is it? I'm like truly interested. Like, what is it like to work in an office? What is it like to work in operations? What is it like to help a state governmental agency streamline their workflow processes? It's for me, that's something totally new. So I'm actually super interested in it.
That's good, man. So do you write poetry now?
I haven't written a poem for a really long time.
Okay, so let's stay with the education in these next few questions. A screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process teaching?
Yeah. Well, so I like the William James quote. He's a great educator. And he said that you should, before each class, you should know your subject completely from end to end. And then in class, you should throw all cares and preconceptions to the wind. I'm botching the quote. And so essentially for me, when I teach a class, I'm ready to lecture for 2 hours. but I don't do lectures. I do discussion-based classes. And so I found a few times when I'm just like, I'm going to go into the classroom. I'm like, the students are good. They'll carry it. It falls flat. It's only when I'm ready to go 100%, the students respond and they're ready to go 100%. And then I step back and I let them do it, or we all do it together, so it's kind of, I think,
it's more interactive.
Yeah, that's what
I think what you said was Gary Player, the golfer, said the more you practice, the luckier you get. You're gonna practice your lecture for 2 hours, then you go in there and do a conversation.
Yeah.
That's good. So Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your student when you're preparing that lecture, when you're preparing your teaching?
Yeah, I don't. A little bit, I'll think about the students, but I think, learning, it's kind of a contagious thing. It's like fire. So it's like, really, I'm following what really interests me. And what is important is that's not going to be the same thing that interests my students. But if they see an example of me following my passions through a text or a question, they're going to create their own pathways. So in a good way, I think I don't worry too much about what interests the students. I worry about what interests me. But I think it's a good method.
No, that's fine. Yeah. McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. Knife and fork extends our teeth. He called them human sensoriums. Shutter in a camera or projector extends our eyelid. Maybe even philosophy or religion extends consciousness. Your main tool, then, the way you described it, is conversation. What humanness is extended with conversation? If you treat conversation as a tool, what humanness are you extending?
Potentially, when it goes right, soul work. So I think about Plato and Lycidas, right? He's talking about the written word versus the conversation. And Socrates says that conversation is better because you can always ask someone, what did you mean by that? And and then he says eventually, you're speaking from the soul or from true knowledge. So I think
what's another word for soul in that context?
Well, I don't know. He'd probably call it, what would he call it? You could kind of call it like maybe the logos in like a richer sense than logic, but kind of we're obviously ordered arrangements, where everything that's alive is kind of a resistance against entropy, and so we're highly ordered. That's why we're alive, and when you die, you're falling into disorder. And so, I think Plato's right. It's like that. We are highly ordered beings, and we kind of match with the universe is also highly ordered. So the fact that we're a pattern connects us to kind of the cosmic pattern, which you'd call ideal forms, but
really good. Yeah, we call it pattern recognition leads to comprehensive awareness, the big picture.
Who is we?
Oh, just people who study McLuhan and Joyce.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I like that quote or that statement. I guess it's not a quote, that statement. Yeah.
Pattern recognition. So anyways, this is McLuhan in 57. It's misleading to suppose there's any basic difference between education and entertainment. It's like setting up a distinction between didactic and lyric poetry on the ground that one teaches and the other one pleases. However, it's always been true that whatever pleases teaches more effectively. So basically, what's the difference between entertainment and education? Is there? And these 4 words, please, whatever pleases teaches more effectively. 5 words.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And that's what I was talking about earlier between, I don't think there's a distinction between meaning and joy.
Yeah. What's your history with Joyce? Did you start reading them because your teachers were telling you, or you picked them up on your own? And what's your, you've told me you attended 2 Joyce reading clubs. I mean, Finnegan's Wake reading clubs. Are you, what's your history with Joyce?
Yeah, Joyce. So obviously Joyce is always, I think, in everyone's consciousness as like, especially Ulysses as one of those big books.
But via high school or college or on your own?
Everywhere. For me, it always seems it's like everywhere.
It's both. I mean, your teachers were telling you to read it, and you were picking it up on your own.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but definitely I do remember, a high school teacher is, they're saying like their pitch for why college is cool is they're like, you'll do a class on just one book, Ulysses.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And but it's just, as a reader, it's always Joyce is always in the atmosphere. Everyone always cites him either with resentment or with respect. And for me, it took me a long time. I didn't read Ulysses until I was actually in my 30s for my reading list for my field exam for my PhD. So I didn't read Ulysses until then, and I did not enjoy reading it the first time, and I only started enjoying it till I read it the second time. And now I really enjoy Ulysses. And for me, I call it cultural generosity, which is that we care for each other in a culture, and we're just like, this is worth pursuing. And every person who ever said that there's something interesting in Joyce, it was accumulating for me. And so each one of those people, they were giving me an enormous gift, because if I just like on a desert island picked up that book, I don't think I ever would have read it or finished it. So it's one that for me, it's a book where I'm really grateful to kind of the supporting culture. So the readers of Joyce, by their insistence that this is worth spending time with, gave me a tremendous and precious gift. I'm really grateful.
So then you kicked over to Finnegan's Wake. What is the Wake better than Ulysses, or do you prefer Ulysses over the Wake?
Yeah. So then Finnegan's Wake was always on my radar. So one silly story is when I was very young, I remember, I don't remember exactly, but there was several hard books that I knew of. So I don't know how old I was, but I was very young. So there's Sound and Fury, there's Ulysses, and there's Finnegan's Wake. So I remember going to the library, opening Sound and Fury, and this is obviously very surface level of understanding, but I open it up and I'm like, that's easy. It's someone playing golf, and so I put it on the shelf. And then I go to Ulysses, I open it up. I'm like, that's easy. It's someone shaving. I put that back on the shelf. And then I go to Finnegan's Wake, and I literally cannot make heads or tails of what is happening in this book. It's just like literally gibberish. And, I flipped the book over onto its back, and there's a quote from Anthony Burgess saying it's the funniest book in the English language. There's a laugh on every page, and I open up again, and it was so perplexing. And ever since then, I have always been so drawn to this book as a mysterious, opaque object. And it's been essentially one of my life goals is it's always been one of my life goals is I want to see one glimmer of light in this space that's completely impenetrable to me. So I had not read Finnegan's Wake before I submitted my dissertation proposal with a chapter on Finnegan's Wake. So that was my tool to force myself to read it. And it has been one of the most interesting reading experiences of my life. Just going through it, reading it several times. And then, in Korea, I just always have it going on in my car. That great, what's his name? Horgan, that great Horgan reading. Is it Horgan or Hogan?
One of them. I know what you're talking. He's the guy. Yeah, it's good tape. Yeah, it's really good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And
but the thing
couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah, the thing is you have to look, I mean, you don't have to, but really with the Wake is you have to look at the words as they're mispronunciating them. And with Ulysses, you can hear great actors reading it and driving your car. But you get that you really described going from Ulysses to the Wake well. And it is an amazing thing you said there, because in your pursuits of business now, I wanted to say we go like this. Joyce invented the internet and disguised it as a book. And then it's like you could fill in anything. Joyce invented blotter acid and disguised it as a book. But in your case, I just revamped it. Joyce invented Peter Drucker inventing modern business and social engineering and disguised it as a book. I mean, that's it. You know, Peter Drucker, you know who he is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. See, you know, modern business. He was a joy. He was a Bucky Fuller and Marshall McLuhanite. And he knew.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. And he knew, you know, he's inventing modern business. And, you know, people think, oh, that's evil, consumer capitalism. And it's really what's called social engineering. And that's what Joyce was. He was a major social engineer. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Drucker's essays are beautifully written.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I think I read some, like, maybe it's actually an obituary or some review of Drucker where they're essentially like, it's kind of new age feel good mysticism for executives, because like they read it and then they feel ennobled because you know, Drucker, you know, he says enterprise, it's like the pursuit of excellence in every way, and how you can give back to the community and how an organization can succeed. But that's fascinating to know his lineage of teachers, because he has an unpretentious lyricism to his essays.
Totally.
I admire his prose.
Oh, yeah. So let's go through some of these Joycean phrases in your take. What does epiphany and everydayness mean?
Yeah.
What do you think Joyce is going with on that?
Well, I think just how he defines it is you kind of have these moments where meaning becomes luminous and presses in upon you. Yeah. Something shows forth. Like for him, it's very etymological. So it says, you know, the classic Joycean thing, you know, the Epiphany, which I think the dead happens on the Feast of the Epiphany, which is when Jesus is revealed to the shepherds and magi. So God shines forth. But Joyce, he's always taking everything from the divine level, which for him is kind of a category error, and he's bringing it down to everyday life. And so he just, I think he's talking about these moments, something shines forth, and it's not the presence of God, but it's just the resplendence of reality itself. Yeah.
Really good. You're a wordsmith, Ryan. Really cool, man. Okay, this is Portrait. I will try to express myself in some mode of life or art as freely as I can and as wholly as I can, using for my defense the only arms I allow myself to use. There's that humans extending themselves right there. Mm-hmm. McLuhan got it from Whitman and Joyce. We extend our humanness with our inventions. Yeah. And the three words he uses is silence, exile, and cunning. What's your take on Joyce's use of those three words? Silence, exile, and cunning.
Well, I forget this. There's the Cistercian monks, and they have a slogan where it's silence, I forget what, but he's borrowing from the monks, their slogan, which I forget what it is. So again, he's adapting or transmuting his religious history into something much more earthly. But yeah, silence, exile, and cunning.
Yeah, but that's the origin. That's where he got it. But what do you think he's meaning by picking those three? What's kind of your hunch?
In one way, I think he's making fun of Stephen Dedalus. So, you know, Joyce did use exile as a tool, as a way of getting perspective on things.
Yeah.
I never think of him as someone who uses silence as a tool. You know, he's not, you know, for Shakespeare, silence is a tool, right? The rest is silence. And maybe for Beckett, silence is a tool, but maybe I'm not reading Joyce rightly, but I think Joyce abandoned silence. And so in one way, Stephen Dedalus is things that he abandoned. So I think Joyce is kind of, I don't think he abandoned the idea of exile, but but I'd be interested if someone thought I was wrong. I think Joyce abandoned the idea of silence and maybe cunningness. Like I think he's very honest, like he's very smart and witty, but I don't think I think he's very frank. So I don't think he's that duplicitous. He's not cunning, like having a scheme. So I think these are things that I think Joyce abandoned, but I'd love to hear another idea.
Really good. Here's another one from Portrait. Welcome, O life, I go to encounter for the millionth time the reality of experience and to forge in the smithy of my soul the uncreated conscious of my race. So, I'm glad you're laughing. Joyce is creaming his jeans. This guy's laughing at my lines. That's what they're supposed. But it is good. Forge in the smithy of my soul. What's that? In the uncreated conscience of my race. Any thoughts?
Well, I do. I think he's making fun of Stephen Dedalus, even though I guess
Yeah.
he's also trying to do that. But in one way he is in Finnegan's Wake trying to map human consciousness and kind of trying to understand a global humanity, so he does kind of have that aspiration, I think, but he's also distancing himself from it. So he's kind of maybe disowning his kind of youthful pretentiousness, but still carrying on that project in a much more humble register.
Yeah. Joyce called himself Applied Aquinas. What McLuhan took it farther. He said, "I'm Applied Joyce." What do you think James Joyce was meaning saying he's Applied Aquinas?
Well, I don't know, but Aquinas is great, like Aristotle, for really looking at the world carefully and describing things carefully. And I think Joyce loves that. Just lop off the transcendence part, and he's right there with him.
Yeah.
So that's probably the application, is like, let's just actually do it.
Ellman said, we're all learning to be Joyce's contemporaries. So not so much, we can live in the old times when Joyce was around, but this actual belief that both Joyce and Zappa had, that all times are happening now, all at onceness, this all at onceness. Any thoughts on this? We're learning to be Joyce's contemporaries.
I think Joyce kind of teaches you how to think. And so that's one interesting thing with these reading groups. They're so rich. And, one interesting thing about the history of Joyce scholarship is, unlike, or especially Finnegan's Wake scholarship, is that it's widely distributed outside of academy. So it's like McHugh, some of the people who understand some McHugh's annotations, he wasn't a literature professor. So expertise in Joyce is like driven by people from all walks of life. It's a really fascinating fact, because I think he teaches people to think. And so for my dissertation, like, in a way, I don't even know if I like Finnegan's Wake, but
dude, now you really hit the right. These people are obsessed. They're obsessed with the Wake. No, that's Bob Gold. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to say that it was, in my dissertation, no chapter was as fun to write, or I think as interesting as my Finnegan's Wake chapter. So it really, it's like, I don't know if I like the book, but I felt like my entire life, this period of reading it intensely, was just kind of getting filled with this spirit of creativity. It was really wonderful.
No, that's there's a quote we'll get to it later, by Bob Goldthwait, the comedian. He says, "You are what you hate."
Okay.
Or it's rooted in you create what you resist. That's what Joyce is doing. My friend says about Zappa, he satirized the stuff that he loved the most. What Joyce was satirizing is what he can't live without. That's Louis Buñuel. Thank God I'm an atheist.
Yeah. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is Milan Kundera, Unbearable Likenesses of Being. This is why I love writing, because the character that I'm writing about can go further than I can. Yeah, right. If I take a pen and write a character on how can the character go further than I'm glad you're laughing. Go ahead, talk metaphorically, Brian.
I just think it's interesting that characters aren't people. And so there's even books where we pretend that characters are people. And Joyce kind of does that, for Molly Bloom, like, lift me up out of here, Jamesy. It's like she knows that she's a character, and she's like, take me out of the book. And At Swim Two Birds by Flann O'Brien, it's like the kind of the joke is that the characters become alive. But I just think it's interesting. We still always know that they're characters.
No, that's a perfect lead in to this one. Ryan, McLuhan said all words are metaphorical. Then if all words are metaphorical, what's the word literal a metaphor for?
Literally.
I know but I mean,
people will use that word literally in the kind of.
They always go literally. Well, what's that a metaphor? What are they metaphorically saying with the word literal? What's another way to put it?
Yeah.
No, I'm asking you.
I don't know. You got me there. Yeah. What is literally a metaphor? Well, yeah.
It's because we want to believe, it's almost like you just taught me about Milan. Characters aren't people. Yes, they are. We think that, these characters exist. I mean, especially Kill a Mockingbird. Once she wrote that character and Gregory Peck played on the movie, we believe that character is for real. There's no, we don't doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know it's made up, but that's back to Faulkner saying sometimes fiction's more true than journalism.
Yeah. Well, here's someone who really influenced me. My 5th grade teacher who recently passed away, but David King. And so I remember, he had a fake apple on his desk, a teacher's apple, because that used to be the gift you'd give teachers. So he had a artificial apple on his desk, I should say.
Yeah.
Because one of the students said that apple's fake. And he's like, no, it's as real as everything else in this room.
Yeah.
Which is completely true. So it's like, yeah, you can't say that anything that's made or even anything that's thought, it's like, that's kind of a category. Like, that's not real. It's like, no, that thought is real.
It's real. Yeah. And if you go see The Wizard of Oz at the Sphere in Vegas, when the trees throw apples in the movie,
yeah,
these little sponge red apples fly from the ceiling and hit you, and you can pick them up.
Did you see it?
No, but I know all about it. But I mean, that's pretty amazing because it's making movies more than 3D. It's the all immersive, experience.
Yeah, I was just curious if you had, because I had seen that they did that. I was curious what your evaluation of that would be, because it.
Oh, you can watch it on YouTube and get a feel what it's like. I mean, it's probably worth $100, but
Yeah.
Okay, what's the motive? Your guess or hunch, the motive of the cave artist?
Oh, wow. Well, one of the things is like that's like in the darkness, right? So these caves, they're going into the dark.
Yeah.
And so whatever they're seeing, they're actually whatever they're painting is coming from inside.
Yeah.
It could be hallucinations. It could be memories. But, and that was, for T.S. Eliot, it was kind of, the cave, and for Picasso and all of these other writers and poets, for them, it's a symbol. It's the invention of consciousness, where you're going into the caves, which is parallel with the process of going inside yourself and bringing something out of that.
Dude, you are brilliant, because this is T.S. Eliot. Poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
I don't know if I have an inner dialogue.
You mean your inner
dialogue? Because I just say what I'm thinking. So
No, I would say you
inner dialogue would give me out some scrapes.
Your inner dialogue is in nothingness. Would that be the answer? If you don't have an inner dialogue, it was called nothing. Actually, this filmmaker I asked in New York, she said it best, I think. What language is your inner dialogue in? She goes, I wish I knew.
Yeah.
But that's also Gary Snyder, the beat poet, nature poet, said, poetry is seeing the world without language, then putting that seeing into language.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that outing that inner dialogue. Okay. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Oh, really depends. Depends on the situation.
In your accomplishments, how do you rate these 3 elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Definitely luck first. And I think one of my failings is I'm not very ambitious. So I'd put skill, but just because I'm so low on the ambition meter.
Yeah.
I should be more ambitious, maybe, I think.
I don't know about that.
It's an ambition to be more ambitious.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I think ambition might be overrated, but anyways, if people say there's other words I left out: purpose, destiny, persistence, necessity. So 2 of my film heroes say their mantra is ignore yourself. There's no self-expression. Cecil Taylor says, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I think more vehicles. I'm with Elliot. Impersonality is really resonates with me as kind of a description for what the artist is looking for.
Yeah.
Escape from the self.
Yeah. Can art making be egoless?
Yeah, I would think so. There's a lot of ego involved. Even though I don't know, maybe that's one of the, because it's like some of the most egotistical people like Picasso, I think actually their art might be freed from the ego sometimes. Like, I think that's the amazing contradiction, right? So no one's more egotistical oftentimes than an artist, but their art itself can be the most pure thing possible, which is astounding. It's
good. Most people say no, and I love it when people say, yeah. One lady said, great art is egoless, So it's interesting how you separated that too. Is perception reality?
Well, not entirely.
Yeah. Tell me one major element of your creativeness that's changed and one major element that stayed the same.
Okay. Well, I think one thing that stayed the same is the resource of the dictionary. So what Emerson calls fossil poetry. So this kind of idea of the importance of words and the etymology of words as kind of always being there. So just whatever comes from, language, and paying attention to words, that's always been a very consistent part of, I guess, my creative approach. The dictionary for me is always a tremendous tool. Then what's new in creativity?
What's
changed? Yeah. Well, one thing, I don't know if I've implemented it, but I'm just more and more interested in anything that's made is creative. So talking, I'm kind of helping someone build a structure right now. So talking to them, building that, it's really, I think it is really creative and to make something.
Here's a good one.
Semiconductors, like that's astounding. Like those first, someone thought up that technology. That's like, wow.
It's amazing. Here's a good one. Eric McLuhan, Marshall's son, taught us. The root Latin word for the word fake, F-A-K-E, and the word fact, F-A-C-T, are both to make.
Yeah.
That's an amazing. So you're just saying, hey, if you just make shit, if you make shit up or make, stuff that think that's authentic,
Yeah, the fake apple is a real apple. The fake
That's
apple
it. Back to your 5th grade, man. Okay, Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Well, I think for me, that'll be too personal. I think that'd just be that's a great question. I think it is turning leaning into your weaknesses is probably important, but so that resonates with me definitely.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the main things McLuhan learned from the Wake is that Joyce did these 3 times. He wanted to be Ibsen. He couldn't be Ibsen, a playwright, female protagonist and all. So he made a book that was a Ibsen wannabe play, Finnegan's Wake. 2, he wanted to be a great singer. He didn't quite make it to be a great singer. So he made a book that's like singing, a hootenanny or singing in a choir. And 3, he didn't want to go blind, and he went blind with the medium that you have to look at. So he created a book that's more an ear experience than an eye experience. That's why you got to read it out loud.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's like turning a breakdown into a breakthrough.
Yeah.
So I asked my friend who wrote a comedy with Robin Williams, can satire be destructive? He says that's the job of satire. But if me or you do a cartoon in a certain country and they kill us, some people think dying is destructive. Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
Well, I bet there's a richer answer, but right off the bat, I'd just say it's to show kind of the absurdity that surrounds us and hopefully deflate it a little bit.
Yeah, and deflate it. Yeah. What's the function of laughter?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. Oh man, I'm just reading. I'm actually reading Gilead right now by Marilyn Robinson, and there's this wonderful line where the reverend, the priest, he is looking at these two mechanics who are on a cigarette break, and they're laughing, and they try to stop laughing because the priest or the reverend is coming, but they can't. And so he's like, laughter is like crying. When it comes, you can't stop it. But laughter, for some reason, is more easily spent. I wish I knew the exact words of this quote, but he's like, laughter's for him, or she through him, thinking about how laughter is something that we can't quite control, and its origin is mysterious.
Yeah,
and it can, it's like, it's something that flows through you almost.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Gurdjieff said laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. But McLuhan loved to quote Steve Allen, behind every joke, there's a grievance. Any thoughts on that? Behind jokes, there's a grievance.
Yeah. Well, that's, I guess, kind of like I think there, maybe not every joke, but there definitely can be. Yeah. Jokes can be such a way of expressing your resentment.
Yeah. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
I don't have a strong sense of what that is. Like, I do think there is a difference, but in a way, I think it's an undefined. It's like, to me, it's kind of, it's something I haven't thought about a lot, but I personally, I think it's kind of like, I feel like there is a difference, but it's deeply mysterious what exactly that difference is, because you're always going to find someone who steps outside of kind of that binary. So I kind of subscribe to that. Some people get very touchy about that, like that there's a feminine or masculine soul or psyche or something. I was just I was at a wine tasting the other day, and he's saying that there's feminine wine bottles and masculine wine bottles, and it kind of evolved out of these centuries of bottling wine, where they just, some wines that have a more masculine presence, some have a feminine presence. How you would define that, I don't know how you would, but it resonates with me.
Really good, Ryan. Yeah, I wrote an essay called Can Art Stop War? And it's based on Riane Eisler and Maria Gumbudas, anthropologists, saying we're more hardwired for cooperation than we are for violence and warfare and military, resolution through military.
Yeah.
And both Krishnamurti and McLuhan said this, which is interesting, that identity is the human search. No, excuse me. Violence is the human search for identity. Any thought of that? I mean, are we more hardwired for violence or cooperation, or you think it's equally, or are we? And is this idea, is violence a search, for human identity?
Yeah, well, I think we're hardwired for cooperation. Like, we have this angry streak, but clearly, if you see, in the military, most people who get out of a few years in the military, they really don't want to go back. If you talk to people, it's not fun at all, and they really have to throw a lot of incentives to pull people into that, because in moments of anger, it's our instinct, but in terms of how it maybe sometimes it can be your instinct, but in terms of how it operates now geopolitically, I think it's absolutely contrary to our nature, and it's kind of shocking and terrifying. That's one thing, like, especially the modernists exploring that after World War I and II. Like, how is it possible that we shape people to be so different from how they intrinsically are? So I definitely think we're instinctually cooperative. And so violence as a search for identity, I guess that could be, but it's the wrong search. It definitely functions that way, but I think there's probably better ways to achieve your identity. But violence is definitely in the toolkit.
Can you forget to die?
Yeah, I just read The Golden Key by George MacDonald, and there's a character there that says, "I'm far too busy to grow old."
Yeah.
I like the thought that you can forget to die, but I don't think you actually. I don't think you can, but I really like that thought.
This is Marcel Proust's question. On what occasion do you lie?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I think that's another flaw. I don't really lie. And same with inner dialogue. It's like I don't really lie, but sometimes it's good to maybe do a white lie.
Yeah. How do you find peace of mind?
Well, I love reading. That for me, that's very rejuvenating. Spending time out in the forest is also really important to me.
We got about 10 more minutes. This has really been fun, Ryan. Here we go. A couple more. Alan Watts, 5 questions just off the top of your head in a couple words. Number 1, who started it all?
God.
Are we going to make it?
Yes.
Where do we put it?
Wherever is convenient.
Who's cleaning it up?
I'll do it.
5, is it serious?
Yes and no.
That was very good. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Buy NVIDIA stock.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over.
If a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a good title. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
It already is perfect how it is. It's very evocative.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
It would be, so sometimes in the forest, the glaciers have left behind a giant stone. So it'd be somewhere in an incredibly remote forest. One of those stones that a sculptor would carve in that site out of the native rock.
I like that. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Like one of those really, like a handmade Italian sports car.
It's good. You never had it, never wanted it. Very good. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Well, I'd probably try to wipe it off, but I don't think if the vomit situation would be helping. I'd be feeling pretty bad.
What's the difference between art and science? Is there a difference between art and science? And if there is, what is it?
Scientists are less neurotic about if they're actually creative.
That is good. Yeah. Louis Buñuel says, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Everybody would go, that's great. And then one guy goes, that's bullshit, because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it. So I morphed it into this. if the journey is more important than the destination, why do we have to seek or name a destination?
Well, you're not going to go anywhere without a destination. The journey's not going to happen without a destination. Or it's less likely to happen. But that's why I think why we need that destination. You need a direction to go in.
Yeah. But it is funny because the flaneurs, psychogeography, Picasso, Duchamp, they're all sitting in Paris in the 20s drinking coffee and just slacking off at the cafes. And then they would have epiphanies in everydayness like Joyce. They didn't like try, but they probably did a little. Who knows?
Yeah, well, it's like, for Beckett, he loves Belacqua, who's a character in Purgatorio by Dante.
Yeah.
And Belacqua is very lazy, and so he just sits at the base of Mount Purgatory. And, he sees Dante cruising on by, and they exchange some pleasantries. But, so Beckett, it's that stationary perspective, and everyone else is going by you. But still, someone has a destination that is giving them the impetus.
Yeah. So you're saying Beckett had a little flaneur sensibility in himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe less flaneur, more. Oh, yeah, flaneur, I guess. I think of him as more stationary, but also it's like, kind of roaming around. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does roam. He does roam a lot in circles.
So this labor activist folk singer Utah Phillips says, anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
It depends what you're talking about. There's different levels.
Because it really is, etymologically, the word freedom is that very quote, giving oneself one's own laws.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what does freedom mean to you now? And I'll just set it up because T.S. Eliot said, freedom is only truly freedom when it appears against the background of an artificial limitation, which caused McLuhan to say, how are you to argue with people who insist on sticking their heads in the invisible teeth of technology and calling the whole thing freedom? Sounds like cell phones to me. So what does freedom mean to you now?
Yeah, well, for me, that's like would go in a really theological direction. So it's like, in the kind of Christian narrative, you have this disobedience as kind of the first act of freedom, right? But then the true act of freedom is obedience, or kind of throwing yourself into a higher order. So I think Eliot would think that, it's like kind of, I think somewhere Eliot actually says something about that, like the the highest sort of freedom is like giving up your freedom in a way.
Wow, suss out that word obedience. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of contingent on the circumstances. There's this great moment. Charles Taylor, he has this wonderful book, A Secular Age, and the final chapter is very beautiful in that book, because Taylor's given this history of how secularism has arisen, and then he kind of describes what he thinks as some of the dead ends in secularism and what his own faith tradition, Catholicism, has to offer. He does the story of the Good Samaritan, which is where everyone avoids the injured person. We all know that parable. And because there's all these different rules, like, it's not clean to touch a dead person. They're not in my tribe. And then finally the Samaritan, he stops and helps the injured person. So Taylor says it's something in your gut where every single rule in your society tells you don't do this, but you have something in your gut that you have to listen to that. And so he's like, that's the divine breaking through. So what that obedience is, if you're saying, you have to be obedient to this, like whatever this rule is or whatever this methodology is, that's a dead end. It's like this moment where you have this kind of unexpected epiphany or realization, when something transcendent breaks through in the world, which in this case is the need to help someone. That's what you're obedient to.
It's good. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
that's one of the things I'm trying to figure out right now. So, I kind of like, for me, so my dissertation was about conversion and apostasy. So I went through this conversion process. So, that for these deep level questions, for me, that's why I've been going in this religious direction. So so this happened very recently to me. So I was received in the Catholic Church like 4 years ago. And I realized I need to find a new question. Because for me, it's I just realized so much of what I was reading, and Eliot was a big part in it, but Wallace Stevens, it's like I resolved kind of maybe this like 15-year question in one form, or not resolved it, but it led to this big change in my life. And I'm looking for a question right now because I need a new question.
That is good. What question remains unresolved for you, Ryan, is what is my next new question to ask? That's pretty good. I like that. But, how has literature, your study of it, your you teaching it, shaped your behavior?
Probably too deeply. I'm very impressionable. I think even I remember reading Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, when I was 17. I was a completely different person at the end of that book. I was not in school anymore. It's this idea of, and whether that's authentic freedom, but this idea of total freedom, freedom of the open road, freedom of everything. That really made a tremendous impact on me. Yeah. And it is, what Whitman says, it's every word that I wrote belongs to you also, and you said it kind of before me. Whitman breaks down these barriers of time. He's like, I'm not saying this first. He's like, even though you're born hundreds of years after me, you said this before me, and I'm repeating it after you, which is very powerful, I think. But so it's not like Whitman gave me these new, or I didn't feel like he's giving me these new ideas, but I felt like I was just really encountering them almost in the flesh. It's like, this is it, all of these things I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So that's one way. Now I'm in a different phase where I've had different books. Eliot's probably made a tremendous impression on me.
Yeah.
Especially four quartets, and the progression from the Wasteland to the four quartets. Because I definitely used to then, after, my Whitman-esque days of, the ego and exhilaration. And then I had my Alfred J. Prufrock phase.
Yeah.
And then my Wasteland phase. And now I'm in my four quartets phase.
Really good. Yeah. T.S. Eliot is the great line. Poetry can communicate before it's understood. I mean, it's endless. The Eliot quotes are in my blood. The other one is, they had the experience but missed the meaning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
he's great. He's one of the greats.
Yeah. Have you ever read Thomas Merton?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one I thought of, what you were just saying about time, reminded me of Wyndham Lewis. Artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future.
Yeah.
Which again is sort of that sense of all times are happening now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Kind of also in a way, it's a flipping the Bloom thing on its head. So, Bloom's anxiety of influence. This is the anxiety of the influence maybe that you're going to have on others. I don't know.
Well, I got two more, but I'm going to do a bonus because you just mentioned Bloom, and I'm going to flip it to an extreme and let you comment on this. Before Harold Bloom died, he was in Esquire magazine. Okay. Do you believe in God? Harold Bloom says, my attitude towards Yahweh is that I don't like him and I don't trust him and I wish he would go away, but I know he won't because he's built into the language, as Nietzsche said. He's part of the way we think. As soon as you use a verb involving being, you're in trouble. Yes. I think that is an amazing way to understand Harold Bloom. But what is your take on what he said?
Well, yeah, I think maybe I don't kind of share his resentments or anxieties that he's trying to express, but I do think he's right, both about how amazing language is, and it is connected with the divine, even from the most orthodox theological perspective, right? The word was made flesh, and obviously flesh all comes from the word. So it's like in the Christian theology, the universe is spoken into being. Let there be light, and there was light.
Yeah.
And then that same word, then in the person of Jesus Christ, is made flesh. So you have word into material reality and back out again. So yeah, I think even from the most orthodox perspective, like Bloom's right on, like that the divine is in language. And being, why, Heidegger's question, why is there something rather than nothing? That question, even if the answer isn't God, it's as profound as, it's an equally profound answer, I think. Like it's just remarkable that. Can I tell another story that anything exists? So I was at visiting some hot springs in Eastern Oregon in the desert. And there's a caretaker at this hot spring who was a very interesting person, architect, who would make these very cool houses. And he had a very cool mobile home with like a chicken coop incorporated in the bottom and a solarium on top. He gave us a tour. Incredible guy. And he sat down. He's like, come into the office. And he sets us down. And he's like, everything is special. And if you are in a city park and there's a cigarette butt on the ground, that cigarette butt is special.
Yeah.
You know why? Because it exists.
Yeah.
And then he's like, enjoy the hot spring. He's like, I just give everyone that speech before I let them go see the hot spring. Yeah. I think it's truly profound that anything exists. It's incredible.
Yeah. And Duchamp really nailed it too. He said, in the future, the artist will only have to point. So I would go, see that cigarette butt? That's my art. See that banana duct tape to the wall? That's my art. Now give me $500,000 for it. I mean, it is an amazing thing. What his attitude is his positiveness.
I think that's what found art. It is really trying to open our eyes to the world. And I remember one particularly, I was working a temp job when I was in graduate school. They're painting a parking lot, and how you do it is you lay down these lines with chalk and you snap it on the ground so it leaves a perfectly straight line. And so there's all this chalk everywhere, and there's some water, and there's these incredible swirls of color on the pavement. And it's just like, this is what they're trying to teach us to see. Like, this is like what you would go to MoMA for, but it's like, it's right here.
It's right there. Well, check this out. That's perfect. Matt McCormick in Seattle or Portland made an amazing film about covering graffiti up. And so these guys are hired by the city to go paint over graffiti. And what they're painting is basically like Mark Rothko color field paintings.
Wow.
So it's like, dude, I paint a squiggly line here, and then you come over and paint that. It's like we're just artists doing layers, over, who's saying what's graffiti. But what's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Well, I don't know if I have maybe this is what first comes to mind. I don't have a good answer, but I'm developing all these snobbish tastes. So one of them is like specialty coffees. So I'm roasting my own coffee and making my own bread. And there's definitely a movement where maybe a lot of people see it as kind of bougie or preppy or hipstery or whatever, but kind of really caring about, to me, it's caring about quality. So I think that's great, because it's like in one way it seems kind of like this elitist thing, like, oh, you're spending $5 on a cup of coffee or something, but it's really, I think it should be, it's like this love of excellence is good, and of kind of actually our sensuous appreciation of reality. I think too, I feel as if when you go into a coffee shop now, less people are buried in their phones. So I think people are kind of realizing that how toxic kind of this stuff can be. I think there's a lot of conscious separation from digital technologies. So that's also heartening. So I think maybe people are paying more attention to the world, which is good.
Good. No, I think your awareness level and how you led there was good, because Igor Stravinsky said most people don't know what they like what they know. So you raise most kids in America and goes, what's your favorite meal? They go McDonald's. Well, they didn't realize, your mother could make homemade, dinner from scratch, or like homemade bread rather than buying Wonder Bread. And, that there is a difference here. But, we developed this aesthetic. That's the taste I want is, a Big Mac. And it's like, no, there's other things possible,
Yeah. And it's interesting, like for bread, so my mother-in-law is like beyond professional level of baker. She's incredibly talented. And so eating her bread in Korea, now here I'm making my own bread, but my loaves are like a 3-day fermentation. That's not commercially viable, but it creates these incredible flavors. And one thing that I'm happy about is that like my daughter loves this stuff because it's all she's ever had. She's never had store-bought bread.
And then you feed her Wonder Bread, and anyways, that's really good. Okay, 2 more, we're out of here, dude. This really been fun. Okay, here's Thornton Wilder. Thornton Wilder, 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
Yeah, well, I think, God's a big part of it, but everything comes from that, and so the natural world, creation, is really important. And then other people are really, really important. So it's like, it's like that when, for me, it's like when you add that God in the picture, it's just like, well, creation. And then, the Genesis story, humans are made in the image of God. So it's like this created world that you inhabit, and these 9 billion images of God are even more important. So it's,
the Frank Zappa song, if God is dumb, then we're dumb because we're made in his likeness, and maybe a little ugly on the side. So if we're made in God's likeness, is he ugly? If we're ugly, or we're dumb and he's dumb, or not he, but you know what I'm saying? It's a joke, but it is. He's a good example, like Louis Buñuel. They and Joyce, they're all obsessed with cutting down the church, or whatever you want to say, satirizing it. And that's because they can't live without it. It's so much a part of them that, it's not like they hate it. It's like they love it too much that they can't let go.
Well, like Foucault loved it. Like in some ways, it's just like there's so many interesting things, like whatever you're talking about, the history of music or the history of architecture. It's like there's just like, you can't all hate it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like,
Ryan, what gives you the most optimism?
The future.
Yeah, wow, that's a good one. I never get that. What I usually get is people saying the youth, the young people. But, the first question I asked you is, what is the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said, the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question I asked is, what gives you the most optimism, is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you. This was really fun and really cool.
Yeah. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Okay. Same here.
All right. Thank you so much.